And hello, and welcome to Magical Journey. I am your host, Daniel Cohoon, and it's Friday Night Live. So before we get started, I'm just going to tell you guys now, my guest tonight no-showed on me. So the one that we were encouraged about being here. But I have a couple of guests that are standing in tonight in his place who are much more, let's just say, I'm probably going to enjoy this better. Anyway, with that said, I'm a little hostile tonight. I am going to tell you guys a little story about magicaljourney.com. Once upon a time, there was a little website, and everybody thought it was great. And if you have not been to it yet, please go and check it out, because it is one of the two places that you can go to under my brand directly that has the podcast in audio. That is new on there, and it's updated every week now. I go through right after the show, and I put in all the new stuff. I'm sorry, I'm like reading the chat. I've got all kinds of new things going on here tonight too. Along with that, do not forget, I know it's not for everybody, but I'm doing a lot of work lately on the Patreon side, and there's content on there that's exclusive to Patreon. You're not going to see it anywhere else. And if you have seen it anywhere else, Mike, hey, how are you doing? If you have seen it anywhere else, you haven't seen it like you're going to see it on my side. Case in point, the pictures that Anna showed us, I'm doing a little bit of an analysis on those, and we're deep diving into them a little bit, because there's some very interesting things that I have found in those photos using AI. I did not give AI any indication of what those photos had. So go check out what that conversation was about and like. Also, before I get any further tonight, I want to talk for a minute about my little cup here that keeps me hydrated all during the show. And where did this come from? Anybody in chat want to take a guess? I know you know. Come on, guys. Up, down, which way am I adjusting it? I have no idea which way I'm going. Is that better? Okay. Let me see if I can sort this out right quick. What do I have a feeling tonight is really going to be as frustrating as it can be. You know what? While I'm doing this, I'm going to go and bring Austin on. Give me a second here. Hey, how are you doing?
Oh, hey, what's up?
You know what? Apparently I'm having grain issues with the mic, so I'm trying to figure out how to adjust that.
Always something, man. Gotta love it. It's live. That's what happens.
Yeah. I'm not going to get into that right now because I'm going to try to stay positive. Where is that setting at for the mic? Do you know?
I'm wondering if...
So it's too much space. Okay, is the base better?
Negative.
Because on the little device here, I have it pretty much almost down to nothing on base.
Yeah, it's. I don't think it's a base issue. Do you have it set to the correct input? Do you know?
What do you mean?
Like go into your settings here and go over to your audio and see what your mic is set to.
Is it supposed to be on the mic itself?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's better.
There it is. There it is.
Thank you.
Now you sound beautiful.
Lovely. Yay. Okay. So Mystic Mountain Creation was the answer to where the cup came from. Is my favorite cup to use now. I literally keep it with me all during the show to keep hydrated. So, Austin,
What's up?
welcome to my crap show tonight that I call magicaljourney.com. So the Magical Journey podcast is a mess tonight. We're going to be okay though. Hey, tell us a little bit about where we can find you and what you're up to, because I don't know if people are aware yet.
So you can find me on Facebook or YouTube. If you look up the Dead Chronicles, and just out there doing some investigating and making some content. You know, it's
So we can find last night's, actually the last two episodes on YouTube, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. And actually, there is the link for that right there.
Oh,
I'm
she's
not
on
sure.
it.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's so big tonight either, but like for some reason, everything has reset recently.
Yeah.
Like the settings on here is reset. My Patreon, I don't even want to talk about what's going on with it right now. And then like some other things across the board have reset. So I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that, but I'm telling you, you know what? The Dead Chronicles is a good place to subscribe to. So thank you for doing that. Last night's episode I thought was it was last night, right?
Yeah. That was last night.
The week is kind of like all flown by because I had to come back home from East Tennessee. That episode was very well done and very good, and there were some surprises in there that kind of made me go, ooh.
That's good. That's what I want. I want a little bit of ooh.
Definitely. And I feel like this pilot episode is really just kind of a teaser to what is coming up. As a matter of fact, I know it is. Like this pilot episode is good, but you guys, we're gonna have to wait until the I guess would be the official first season.
Yeah. Yep.
Is actually up and running because it is going to be unbelievable.
It's gonna be good, man. It's gonna be good. Got some amazing locations lined up. It's gonna be a very interesting 11, 12 episodes.
It definitely is. I'm looking forward to it. you know, one of the things that I find very interesting about the concept of ghost hunting, as people like to call it. I'm really not into that term very much.
Same.
We're not out hunting for ghosts,
Right.
and that terminology is probably the easiest understood by the slowest of laymen, but there's a lot more to it than just what people see. And I think that's one of the things that I feel like for those of us who understand and are learning the mechanisms, the nuts and bolts behind things, uh, it's kind of very misunderstood is the best way to put it and the nicest way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really have kind of what do you want to call it, like a subgenre. Ghost hunting is like a subgenre. You have your ghost hunters, you have your paranormal investigators. Your ghost hunters are kind of more your thrill seeker types, which there's nothing wrong with that, who go these places and, they're just there for the thrills, really. And then you have the paranormal investigator side where people like me, I won't even say ghosts exist. Do they? I don't know. But, it's like even going back to the last episode where one of the owners was talking about how he captured himself on a recorder 15 years after, 15 years later, in a location that he worked at. And I had heard him there when I was there, and he was not there. So, that's just one of those things that really make you go, So now we're capturing EVPs of the living. So who really knows what's going on out there? I mean, we never will, but there's a lot. There's not just one thing, right?
Well, and I think a lot of people still believe that time is linear.
Right.
I'm not really sure how to address that either, because to be honest with you, I'm amazed that in the time period that we're living in, that there are still people that believe time is linear. We have enough of evidence to back up the fact that it is not linear, and yet we're still there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It very well may be one of those things which could also explain things like doppelgangers and all that crap. Could explain aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not from another planet. Maybe it's just us. Who really knows? I know. I was talking to a buddy of mine before we went on this last investigation, and there's this place in Tennessee, and I forget exactly where it's at, but I think you hit on it when we were talking about it. But it's this place where they're kind of doing kind of what CERN does. No one's entirely sure what's going on there, but they're, people think that they're opening portals and all this stuff, whatever. But a long time ago, like 100 years back, there was a man who wandered into the forest, got lost, came back out, and he spoke about this massive building. He explained it, where it's going to go, where it's going to be, and everything. And that's where they ended up, 100 years later, building this government building where they're doing all this weird stuff. And people believe that they had opened up a portal, but because since time isn't necessarily linear, like you were saying, this man, 100 years before this building was built, he saw through this portal and he saw this building as it is current day all the way back in the past. So, I mean, who's to say?
Well, then even like many years ago, we're talking 1930s or so, um, a man named Godfrey Ray King literally wrote volumes of information uh, based on his experiences of time travel, if you would. It was called the I Am Discourses. And while there's a lot of people that debate whether or not he actually had those experiences, I challenge people to go back and read the material at least just to see, because we're talking about a man who lived in 1930, and some of the technology, some of the things that he was describing from seeing uh, was not things that they had at that point.
Right.
And it was, even though the books themselves may appear to be a work of fiction to some people, is very questionable to me as to, you know, how, like, I don't even think anybody doing recreational stuff would be able to come up with some of the stuff that he came up with in this book. So where did he get the information? Where did he get the inspiration for the story, if it is a story? Because there's a lot of things that he described very intricately. There were things, the way that he went about giving the visual of what he was seeing in words was extremely defined for somebody who was just like coming up with this stuff out of the top of his head.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to think about it, 1930, they didn't even have like science fiction movies out and so forth at that time. So you can't say that you
Right.
saw it in a movie, or, you know, that he may have read it, you know, or whatever, in this place or that place, because they're just, at that time, people were very limited to their understanding of how things would be working the way they do and the way you describe them. That's why I'm saying it's very hard for me to believe that this guy just like pulled this crap out of the air.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Um,
it's 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 really hard telling. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever understand, nor will we ever truly know. But the more that you get into the world of the paranormal, the more lost you get.
right?
Like easily, the more lost you get. Like we just went from ghosts to does time exist in 2 seconds? Like, it's crazy.
It is, and you know, this is one of the reasons why I try to keep a very open mind about things, even though, you know, I do follow a theology. I do have a belief in, you know, in God, and you know, and there are those people that would be like, well, you know, but the Bible says this and the Bible
Right,
says
right.
that. Do we really know? I mean, have you studied the Bible thoroughly enough in its
Mm-hmm.
correct context to be able to make the call on what it actually says?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are words in there that do not translate so great into,
Correct.
you know, white man language.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's like now we know that he wasn't born in a manger. Even stuff like that. It was more like a hotel type of rundown hotel, stuff like that. Because of how, like you said, how words translate. They don't exactly.
Mhm.
You're going from a very limited language to English being the hardest language to learn, a very complex and ridiculous language that makes no sense on its own.
Right,
So
right.
it's it's interesting because one of the things that blew my mind, this would have been last year. and I'm escaping on the name. I can't think of it right now. But there was a neuroscience scientist out of Essex, and he came out and he was talking about how we actually all live in a controlled hallucination. And how he kind of explained it is if you were to take your finger and touch your nose a couple times, you feel it on your fingertip and on your nose at the exact same time. And he said we know that that is 100% impossible because number one, it takes a while for your brain to register that it's being touched. And number two, it's going to take a lot longer for your finger and all the receptors to travel to your brain than it would from your nose to your brain. So we should at very least feel, a very slight delay. And so what he said is that our brain is kind of like AI in the sense where it learns things and then it just applies those things across the board. So since it knows, hey, you're touching your fingertip to your nose, you should feel this and this. So you feel them both at the exact same time, which is biologically impossible. So one of the things he said is how many things are around us? How many things exist that we can't see, hear, or touch because we don't know that they exist yet.
Right.
Because we are living in this controlled hallucination and he also said, your eyes, you blink, yet you don't see that. Your brain fills in the gaps there. And when you move your eyes from left to right, you should see gaps in there, but we don't. It's because your brain creates those frames, so to speak. So there's so much that could be around us that we don't see because we don't know to see them. And that's why I'm starting to wonder, is it the chicken or the egg? Because when you go back and you talk to paranormal investigators, 99% of them said, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I had this happen. So I always wonder, back when we had more of this, because back when you're a kid, your brain's still trying to learn, what things are, don't touch the stove, is hot, like those kinds of things. So your brain's still trying to learn. So is it possible that these kids are able to see things that we can't simply because their brain isn't hallucinating everything yet? And since they saw these as children, had these experiences as children, now that they're paranormal investigators, their brain now knows, hey, these things exist. But it's also why I love to investigate in total darkness, no flashlights, no nothing, because the way I look at it is my brain knows there damn well should not be anything at the end of this hallway at 3 a.m. in the pitch black. So try creating something for that, right? if you're going to try to hallucinate something, then good luck.
A couple of things went through my mind while you were talking. Like, there are times when things happen that are delayed for me. For instance, I remember getting stung by a bee a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually felt the bee on my ear, but I did not feel the sting right away.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I knew there was something that had happened. It's the same way with other things, like I dropped something on my foot at work one night.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I saw it happen, but I did not feel the effects of it right away.
Right.
Now, if something is impacting, most of the time, people say that like, they stomp their toe, they get an immediate reaction. But occasionally that doesn't necessarily happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there may be a little truth in that thing about delayed reaction there for sure. Personally, I've experienced that. I can say that for me personally, I can
Yeah,
I
it's
have that data to kind of say, okay, that works.
that's like I guarantee you we've all at one point in time had like a paper cut or something like that, and we didn't realize it. And then a couple minutes later, we look down and we see we're bleeding, and then you look at it and you start feeling pain in your finger.
Mhm.
Like that's not uncommon.
I stuck a knife in my hand one morning, slicing a bagel of all things, and I
did
pulled
you
it.
just put the knife through the hole?
No, I was
Okay.
so it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I was rushing to try to get ready to go catch my bus because I was, hey guys, I have all kinds of people dropping in now. Um, I was trying to get ready for work, and so I was cutting a bagel to carry with me to work that day for lunch. And I had a bagel slicer, and apparently my hand slipped or whatever at the same time that I was getting ready to run the knife through it, and I stuck the
Mm,
knife into my hand. I didn't even realize, like, I thought it just like kind of like just poked me a little bit. But
yeah.
then when I pulled the knife back, blood just started gushing out. And I was like, why did blood not start gushing out right away? Why did it wait for the knife to come out? But, then of course, I didn't feel anything right away either until I realized that I was bleeding. And then I was like, ow, you
Right.
know, I'm wrapping my hand up. I'm walking through through the apartment to wake my girlfriend up to tell her I'd cut my hand. And she's like, oh my God, don't bleed on my comforter. I'm thinking to myself, I'm bleeding out. And you're worried
Right.
about your comforter. But hey, that's beside the
Right.
point.
Right.
But I was just like, that whole scenario was so weird to me. Because,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's strange. But it makes a lot of sense when you talk about, from the evolutionary standpoint, to be able to, for the brain to create this evolutionary trait was start hallucinating things. Um, in the sense that, you don't want to put your hand in the fire for 5 seconds before your body knows, hey, this is hot. You're going to do a little bit of damage, those kinds of things. So it makes sense that the brain would develop a trait to keep you alive because it wants to be alive. And then again, we don't have free will anyways because our brain, yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But that's neither here nor there.
Right. That's a theological debate for another season.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. Uh, when you go into the whole thing though about the concept of whether are we living in a simulation, are we living in some kind of weird uh matrix something, there's all these different theories that people have now that's very interesting, and there's a lot of stuff to back them up. um I don't necessarily believe a lot of the things that other people believe, uh, but I do have a concept of why things are the way they are. I have some understanding for me personally as to why I feel like things are the way they are. Um, but in reality, eh, when we use terms like reality,
Mm-hmm.
you we use ideas like what is reality, you
Right.
know, what is truth, what are these things, is it, you know, even though there are some things that are obviously very true um, in most people's reality, electricity and water don't mix in anybody's reality. We know this. So that's probably a truth. If you stick something in fire, it's going to burn. That tends to be everybody's reality. So we kind of believe that this is a truth. If you eat, you're going to continue to live. There are some things that happen as a result of eating. They can fuel you. You can gain weight from it. There's a lot of things that happen to people when they experience eating. And of course, the evacuation process is usually the same for most people. So we have to assume that there are some truths out there,
right,
that we all report being exact, being universal truths.
yeah.
However, when it comes to the paranormal, and other things in general, like there's a lot of things that outside of the paranormal that I tell people all the time. We have to keep an open mind about them. We have to it's not enough to prove their existence, but we need to go past proving the existence and finding out exactly the what, where, why, how,
right,
of things. Because just proving that it exists, doesn't really, it doesn't say a lot for us. I mean, okay, so it's there, it's real. Okay, that's nice. Why is it there? What is its purpose? How does it do the things it's doing?
Exactly.
How is it manipulating stuff the way it manipulates stuff? We've seen things that we call spirits, ghosts, other things manipulate things like being able to hit objects and make noises, ring bells, move objects. We've seen them be able to do all kinds of parlor tricks where they make the cat balls go off and the REM pods go off. We've seen this time and time again, so we know they're capable of doing this. But how do you manipulate solid objects when you are not solid?
Right.
We still don't even know that much yet. We're not even sure why they do it, other than to entertain us, but there's got to be a reason behind it.
Exactly. Yeah, there's definitely a deeper reason than I'm bored, so I'm gonna
My dead grandma still wants to do YouTube, so she's gonna ring a bell for me. Hey.
Right.
That's probably not it.
Yeah, I would definitely assume not. It's like you said, the question is the why. Maybe that is one of the things that they might have unfinished business. Maybe they are lonely. Maybe they're stuck. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. Maybe that's like their vacation, right? We could be talking about things from another dimension. Maybe that's their school field trip. Who knows? There's just so many possibilities out there that just by saying, "Oh yeah, there's weird stuff going on out there," let's call it a day. Like, well, no, we gotta dig a little bit deeper, or at least try to.
Yeah. I mean, we can sit here all day long and we can see the evidence. We can see, all the things that point to the yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's as far as most people want to go, because they don't seem to understand that there are things that we do need to learn. If something, I mean, I love it when somebody says, well, I don't believe any of that because I believe in science. Well, can you scientifically prove to me that it doesn't exist?
Right.
And if not, maybe you need to consider doing the research on finding out that it doesn't exist and why it doesn't exist. How about that?
Yeah, Absolutely. And science has its whole own little what is it? Spooky matter to distance and stuff like that that exists within science that's just they can't explain.
Hmm.
We still can't explain a whole lot of stuff. So we can take scientific methods and apply it to these fields. Um, but that's still not disproving that these things exist or whatever's out there exists. We know something exists. What is it? We have no idea. I got no clue. I couldn't tell you. I this past week I've experienced things that I never thought I would experience. There are things going on out in the world that I did not believe. I watched Mark Channel, and that was the second time I've seen it, but the first time I've seen him channel a demon. That's a thing. Like, so even yeah, it was something without vocal cords, right? How can something without vocal cords make a sound?
Exactly.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's one of the many things that blows me away about when we talk about and then EVPs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, like I've heard some very convincing EVPs, but I've got to tell you, the one EVP that I've heard that blew me away,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, absolutely made me stop when I heard it, was the one that Sin Schrader Hill
Dude,
played.
My Hero.
The freaking video that she played
Yep.
of the EVP from her nephew.
Yep.
He literally tapped something and then he goes, in the microphone, did you hear that?
Right.
Loud and clear. It wasn't
Right.
one of those really typical EVPs that you have to go back and listen to repeatedly to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I've never heard anything that freaking clear to where we all sat there like, Sin, there's nothing there. Like, what are you talking about? She's like, no. This part, I'm like, wait, that's not a living person sitting inside the room? She's like, no, then we all just lose it. Like, what? So, yeah, dude, it's freaking nuts. How does that happen? How does that exist? We have no idea.
Exactly. And we don't ask the questions. We don't even know what questions to ask sometimes.
Right.
One of the most obvious questions to me is could it be that he was working within the realms of his connection to her? Because they were very close. Relationally, they were very close. They were also extremely close kin. So with that, is there something about those two things?
It's possible, but the other interesting thing you start to get into is, for example, I can go out and investigate, and I'll have an audio recorder, I'll have 2 cameras, and I'll have my microphone on my body. And there's been times where I've caught a loud voice on the microphone that's on me and not on the cameras of the audio recorder. Or maybe I'll capture it on one camera but nothing else. And so it's like, how does it get to pick and choose what it wants to be captured on? I don't know.
We do know they can direct energy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I've seen this more than one time where a friend of mine who used to have a TikTok account would go on and he would do like hours long lives where he would experiment with different things. And he, more than one time, antagonized one thing to the point where it blew up his equipment. It blew up a flashlight one night on live. And when I
Nice.
mean blow up, I mean it literally, the flashlight exploded. There were pieces flying everywhere.
Nice.
So why just the flashlight and not everything around? So
Right.
we know that they can direct their energy. We know that there are things that they can do, that they can manipulate things. At least some of them can manipulate things in that way.
Yeah, no, you're 1,000,000% right. It seems to be the case. Now, how and why? No idea. That's the whole question that we're probably not getting an answer to until we transition over to the other side and might be able to figure it out and torment idiots like us.
Although I will say it could be very possible that if we, and let me qualify this. I've seen people who can manipulate things like make water move and stuff like that without touching it. It's There's a handful of people that at one point actually made it a trend on TikTok. They were manipulating energy and they would wave their hand over the water and you would see it rippling, and then they would wave their hand back and it would be rippling in the opposite direction, stuff like that. So it wasn't one of those situations where the water was moving in a way that the wind was doing it. It was like a specific area in the water where they were directing the energy and moving it to make it ripple or whatever. They are very much alive and are able to use that manipulation of energy to be able to do that. So we could find out from them by simply asking them, but nobody has really ever, given an answer to that
Right.
question that I know of anyway.
Right.
In a way that everybody can understand it. Like I love it when somebody goes, well, it's manipulating energy. It's just, you just got to know how to manipulate it. Can you be a little more specific, boys and girls? We want to know the nuts and bolts of it. We don't want to know the obvious response.
Yeah, and I was talking to, this was a while back. I was talking to Brandon Alvis,
Mhm.
and I love them just because of how scientific they are. So I constantly picking their brains. And he told me that at one point they had a setup because they work with Dr. Cooler, who's the only man to simultaneously get 2 PhDs. So insanely intelligent man that they have at their disposal. And he actually created this device that was able to convert audio into an electromagnetic field. So then they were able to hold EVP sessions and send out their questions not in sound, but in electromagnetic field. And he said that they got some of the most insane responses back by pushing out, these questions in forms of energy as opposed to like us talking right now. And that's something that I've been kind of trying to find a way to tool with it myself on a poor budget. But, I don't quite have the backing that they had to be able to do what they do. But, it's just kind of goes with what you're saying, it being energy and be able to direct it, but more so taking energy in this case and just throwing it out there. And they seem to be able to interpret it or interact with that better according to their research. So then why would they not be able to shoot that back, in forms to communicate?
Right.
It seems like that's the way that they might best communicate. So
See that I almost feel like I need to be doing research while we're talking.
right.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been working on lately in research, because there's a show that I have scheduled next month, that the topic is about the Meadows Project, with Trey Hudson. And so I've been in contact with him a little bit. I've been in contact with and have scheduled somebody who was part of the Skinwalker Ranch
Oh, cool.
experience, and had an experience in their own place that predated Skinwalker. So I say all that to say this: the area that I grew up in was an area of high strangeness too, and it was an area that was in a location that I would suspect to be high strangeness, to be honest with you. What I'm curious about, because my belief is that all of these things are somehow connected together.
Right.
Because when you look into these areas like Skinwalker Ranch, the Meadows, the area that I'm talking about that I grew up in, it's not just one thing.
Right.
Right. It's not just seeing UFOs, or it's not just seeing a cryptid, or having a poltergeist activity or something like that. It's all kinds of stuff just mixed in there.
Yeah,
And
I mean, you can look at, for example, Octagon Hall right there in Kentucky. They tell you, they say, okay, there's ghosts here. There are portals. Don't walk through them. You got to bring a gun because you might come into contact with Bigfoot or Dogman. Like, they tell you this stuff, and you're just like, what? But then you realize you're in Kentucky, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
Look, there are some of my Kentucky researchers. One of them I'm really trying to get to come on the show, because he's done a lot of research in Daniel Boone Park. Was it you? No, it was somebody else that I was talking to, and that had pointed out the fact that Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia and Alabama is all areas of extreme high strangeness. Then you go north and you have, what is that, the Brentwood Triangle? Is that what they call it?
Oh,
it
I think
over
so,
there, like in New York and Massachusetts, that area. You would think I could remember the name of it better than I do, because one of my ancestors is actually connected to that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Actually, he was one of the first. He was involved with the massacre. He was one of the victims in the massacre that started the Prince Philip War. So when you research that, you find out that fort that took place at was actually right in that triangle.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that kind of connects there, and it makes me wonder about that. He was originally on Block Island, Rhode Island. That's where he founded what he helped found. Why he moved from there to this is a question that I have. But anyway, that's really neither here nor there right now at this moment. It's just these areas, especially like the Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia areas, there's significant amounts of things that happens in these areas that it seems like it's, I mean, you don't hear the same things being told in the way that they're getting told, in the amount of stories that are coming out that you would have, like, you know, in the Midwest, or, you know, you don't, like, you hear, you just don't, there's too much, you know what I'm saying? There's just too much. There's something not quite right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, other places you would hear people say or talk about, oh, I had this one experience here this one time, maybe, but you know, it doesn't really get talked about. You go to, like, when we were going down to Tennessee this past week, like I said, you can go anywhere in Kentucky or Tennessee, go into any gas station, go anywhere and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I guarantee you that person has a story. I guarantee it. And if they don't have a story about a ghost, I guarantee they have a Bigfoot story. I guarantee they have a, you know, a Dogman story. They have whatever. They have an experience, guaranteed. Eyewitness, not this. I heard this from a friend. Like, they've experienced something, you know. It is so interesting. And the good thing about, you know, especially Kentucky, is people are very forthcoming with that kind of stuff. Other places, you know, they don't talk about it, or, you know, whatever, for fears of being made fun of, outcasted, or being in the Bible Belt, you know, whatever it may be. But Kentucky, they will, most places, they'll just throw it out there.
Right. Definitely. Kentucky, there is a lot of talk. What really amazes me is when I go to East Tennessee, and I work there quite a bit now, and I make a comment to somebody about just kind of throwing it out there to see if they've heard anything at all. You know, because people, you ask them about, have you ever tried this food or that food? They'll talk about it in a minute.
Right.
But I've mentioned things like Dogman before and stuff like that, and I've gotten blank stares from them. Like, I've actually had several, I don't even know what that is.
Yep.
Really? It's like, are you just saying that, or are you saying that to try to avoid having that conversation?
Right. You know what? So one of my biggest, I mean, I'd been to Kentucky many times before, and I've always loved it. But one of my biggest, like, welcome to Kentucky moments was Bridgewater Triangle. Yes. I was there with a couple of people, and we were in Hellier, which a lot of people probably heard of, famous for the documentary with the goblins, whatever. And we were trying to find this cave where these goblins supposedly exist. And so we went all the way up, like, this little mountain, and we're in this church parking lot, like, looking down, like, okay, if we get up high enough, we might be able to find it. So we get up, and the pastor from this church ends up coming out. And I'm from Ohio. To me, that means I'm about to get shot by this pastor. So I'm kind of freaking out. They're like, no, it's cool. We're in Kentucky. I'm like, what does that mean? And he comes up, he's like, hey, welcome, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, so what are you guys doing? And we're like, looking for this cave with goblins. He was like, oh, you mean this cave? Yeah, I know where that's at. That, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there like, where am I? What is going on right now? What? This pastor from a church came out because these young people were poking around his property looking for a cave with goblins, and he literally told us where it was at and allowed us to go, like, back on his property.
Oh, wow.
On this, not even a road, like, through his yard, to go see this cave find goblins, and I'm like, wow, this is Kentucky. Okay.
Oh yeah. There's just again, it depends on the culture of the area. A lot of times, I, don't get me wrong. I love Tennessee. I live here for a reason.
Yeah.
But it's just so much don't ask, don't tell here
Yeah.
about some things. If
Yep.
like people here, they talk like some things are not just don't
Right.
exist. But I know for a fact that there's a little shop there in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that's just
Okay.
full of herbs and statues and all
Mhm.
kinds of things that is used in various practices
Right.
that would not have the stock they have if they weren't selling stuff.
Correct.
Okay. So all these folks are walking around going, I don't know nothing about that.
Mhm.
Why is this shop with a bunch of like, I mean, the majority of people that I see that live in Oak Ridge appear to be European descent. Why is this shop selling red brick dust in
Right.
it if nobody's buying it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's so where we were at last week is it kind of goes along the lines with what you're talking about as far as practitioners and people coming together. But so this place had existed for 20 years up to us going there. My buddy, who is the most knowledgeable person ever when it comes to the paranormal, when it comes to crazy lore and stuff like that, lived in this town for 10 years of his life, and he had never heard of its existence. Ever. Because, like you said, it's so don't ask, don't tell. How this place had existed for 20 years without, anyone really knowing about it, without him knowing about it, without the 5 churches that are right around it knowing about it. I don't know. It's not like they hide it, but somehow, you know, it's strange.
Because the state of Tennessee works like this. They will get very vocal about what they believe in.
Mm-hmm.
They will get extremely vocal about food because we love food here.
Oh, yeah.
They will openly get very vocal about politics and religion.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain things that if they see it out of the corner of their eye, they quickly put their head down like this
Right.
and they ignore it and they don't
Right.
talk about it because we don't see those things.
Yep.
And that is one of the things this is what I'm talking about like, how do these places exist? There is a shop in Donaldson, Tennessee, right there in the Nashville area that's so well
Okay.
known. People will take planes that have stops in Nashville just to stop long enough to get off and go shop at this store. It
Mm-hmm.
has a 20-something year history. Is very well known. They literally carry all kinds of things there for all kinds of practices. You name it, it's there somewhere in that shop.
Right.
So again, and this little place they've got a tiny little parking lot. People park in the bank parking lot next door because there's so many people in that building some days that they don't have enough of room for their parking. So when these folks say, oh, we don't know nothing about this.
Right.
It really means I ain't trying to talk about that.
Yeah.
That's what it really means. They'll talk about lore all day long. They'll talk about haints and all that kind of stuff all day long. They'll tell you stories that Granny told them about
Yep.
this and that and another. But let's look at, and again, I love Tennessee. There's a reason why I live here. But let's look at a list of things you're going to find in people's homes from old school stuff that all fit into one category. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Horseshoes over the door, especially the ones that are like up, pointed upward.
Yep.
You're going to find a rabbit foot in somebody's pocket somewhere. Okay. You're going to find sometimes bowls of salt sitting around in people's houses. Well, that's just to take the moisture out of the air. Maybe a little bit, but your hair is not that damp in here.
Right.
There's a lot of things that these people will talk about that rose petals, dried roses in their house and stuff like that. What's this for? Oh, it's good luck.
Well,
everything's good luck.
Isn't wind chimes?
They're good luck.
But I think that I could have sworn there's something deeper to that I was told by someone from Appalachia.
There's something deeper for every one of them. But if you ask them, it's always good luck. It don't matter what it is. You're carrying around a part of a dead rabbit for good luck.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful about how you go about asking those questions the right way and make sure nobody is around. And if they trust you, they may tell you what that's really about.
Right.
But yeah, wind chimes definitely. There's a lot of things about wind chimes. Bells in general, are very cleansing. They keep away things. They repel things. If you want to cleanse everything in your house of all negative energy, the quickest way to do it is to ring bells. Just make sure you got your windows open at the time, so all that negative energy can go right out the door or the window.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about you're trying to shoo something out of your house. If you don't have something open for it to go out, it's just going to be hanging in there.
Right, right.
It's the same way with when people, if you notice, a lot of times the old timers will only sweep things out their back door.
Yep.
There's a reason for that.
Right.
And a big reason for that. So, all of these little isms and the ain'ts that people got throughout the South, especially the South, because there's a lot of superstition here.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be very, very inquisitive to the right people to know what it's all about. Sometimes the wind chimes, another thing about the wind chimes is there's a lot of things that go into why people have the wind chimes, depending on what they believe and what they're looking for or whatever. Some people believe that the wind chimes pacify the fae.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, and you want to keep the fae as happy as you can, because a mad fae is not a good thing.
Right.
We don't want the fae mad. We don't want them mad at us. We don't want them mad at our property, our dog. We don't. No.
Yep.
I know people that will set fruit and stuff outside, pieces of cake
as offerings. Yep.
Yeah. There was a girl I used to know. Every time she baked muffins, the first thing she did was set one on a plate and put it outside under this particular tree. And I used to ask her, I was like, are you feeding the ants? And she would just look at me and laugh. She'd go, no. So that's for my little people. Oh, okay. Okay, I got you.
I need to convince my neighbors that the Fae exist. Because if I got a free, muffin every single morning, we might be on to something here. You wouldn't cut your hand on bagels anymore. You wouldn't have to cut them.
There you go. I quit eating bagels. I don't particularly like them so much anymore. And it has nothing to do with that. It's just my taste has changed. Yeah, because I used to love bagels and lox, and I still like bagels and lox some, but not like I used to. Like every once in a while, I'll get a hankering for a bagel and lox, but not like I used to. When we talk about these things, though, all of this craziness, all of these lores and so forth, you just there's so much to be said about what not only what we need to be researching, but
Right.
we need to be learning about what's around us. Like
Right.
some of the things going on here in Tennessee right now. I can tell you, like that place that you guys were at, it needs to be known. It needs to be known about, and it needs that people need to understand what's going on with it and why it's going on, because they've got two things on both sides of them that are really, really significant.
Right.
And one of them y'all didn't even know about. I didn't know about until recently. I just found out about the one thing really recently. But we have to understand that if we don't start learning a little bit more about and uncovering a little bit more about the things going on around us, we may be putting ourselves in a disadvantage.
Right.
Yeah. Like, okay, here's a good example. And this is something I really wanted to bring up at another time, but it's really relevant right now. For those of you that's been following me for a while, y'all remember me talking a while back about us going through a transitional period. One of the reasons things have been going on the way they've been going on, all this crazy stuff that just seems like it was coming out of nowhere, it's because we're going through a transitional period. And I even told you that there would be an uptick of this stuff, that you would see more and more of it, and you would see things start to come around that is going to make great changes, and that there was going to be some adjustment periods in this. Okay. So let's backtrack a little bit here. Okay. So first you had the storm over here, Helene, that did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then a little while later, over on the West Coast, all of a sudden you've got Hollywood burning down.
Yeah.
You've got a whole area burning down. Well, now what's happening over there? What's the big thing in the news right now coming out of Hollywood? They're literally looking at the crack in the wall that's going to bring down a lot of the entertainment industry. It's like this whole thing that's going on right now, this trial that's going on with a certain guy, Diddy, is just a crack in the wall to what they're going to uncover. And it's going to change how we see entertainment industries and a lot of things. It's going to change the landscape of entertainment for us, especially in the music industry and in Hollywood.
I think you have more faith in people than I do, because I don't think it will.
It will actually do. There's going to have to be shifts because the people that are going to be affected by this and incarcerated is going to leave huge gaps.
I mean, there could be, but I think they're too elite for that. And I think if tomorrow Taylor Swift comes out and says, "I sacrifice children and drink their blood and do all this crazy stuff," people will be like, "That's her right," and they're just going to keep listening to her. We are seeing this stuff happen now with individuals. It doesn't matter what they do. It's like, well, I could be the most pro don't kill children person ever, which I'm not for it, for the record. I'm not a big fan of that. It's usually not a good thing to do.
Usually.
But people will overlook things, and it kind of goes to what we've been talking about this whole time, is people will overlook things so that they don't have to question their worldviews, or they don't have to think against of what they support or believe in. It's the same thing with people saying, "Oh, we know nothing about that." Wink, wink. I don't know. It's a very cognitive dissonance is a very real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's gonna be interesting to see how all this plays out. But at the same time, we're talking about how it's all over the media, but it's really not. It has not been made as big of a deal as it really is.
Well, in the mainstream media, no, because
exactly.
Mainstream media is actually owned by some of the people involved with some of this. So
exactly,
they're never going to look at CNN is owned by an entertainment company.
Correct.
Okay, it's just a fact. Look it up. Do the research.
Yep.
They're owned by an entertainment company. So when you talk about things like that, and if you really want a good read on that particular subject, there's a lot of things in this book that I'm going to suggest to you that the author later retracted his belief on. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that he always stood firm in is his belief in the Hollywood conspiracy part.
Mm-hmm.
But there was William Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse. Very good read on some things. Again, like I said, he later retracted his belief in some of the stuff that he wrote in this book, but it was other things that he wrote in that book that you can go back and you can definitely research. And you can find it, especially now, because he wrote that book in the 1980s. There's enough of evidence out now to back up what he was saying. And his whole thing on the JFK files, now they're accessible, most of them. So you can do in-depth research on all of those things. So we have more information now than they had in 1980.
Yes.
Go back and read this book. Check it out. Behold the Pale Horse by William Cooper. Like I said, there's parts of it that gets a little out there, but there are researchable things in there that make me go, he was onto something. He was onto something at that time. He didn't even realize what he was onto.
Yeah. Yeah, you were 100% right. There's a lot of, like we've been talking about this whole time, a lot of strange things going on out there. I mean, it's like we know Bohemian Grove exists.
Yeah.
Just saying. We know that's a thing. And we know like there's only been one president who wasn't a member of the Skull and Bones Society,
Right.
I
Right.
think. So, we know Freemasons are still out there. Just there's so many crazy things that's still going on out there that we realize exists, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Once again,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well, people will go back and so before I say this, let me clarify something
This
with
is
you
how I know
guys.
it's gonna be good.
So one of the people in my ancestry was deeply involved in the early days of the Mormon Church. Okay, when Joseph Smith was walking the earth, this man was on mission with Joseph Smith's brother. That's
Right.
how deep into it he was. And so, and his journal is actually considered one of the most important documents in American history because it is a journal of his experience um, from the beginning with Joseph Smith, and he also went with Brigham Young into Salt Lake City. So when I talk about the subject of the Latter Day Saints, I'm not coming from it from a misinformed way. Okay, I have direct insight. I don't want to go into my sources, but I have direct insight onto what I'm saying, and I've done a lot of research because of that connection to know
Right.
what I'm talking about. First of all, Joseph Smith, the reason why there was so much controversy with them in Illinois, and the reason Joseph Smith was incarcerated was because he had a deep desire to be a Mason.
Mm-hmm.
The Masons did not want any part of him. So lo and behold, what did he do? He all of a sudden got this go ahead from God to
Right.
create a temple.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that was it. That was the last straw. That was the nail in his coffin, literally.
Mm-hmm.
They incarcerated him because of that, because they did not want him creating another type of lodge. And that's what the temple was supposed to be to start with.
Right.
If you ever get a chance to go to one publicly, and when they first build a temple, they have open house where they invite the
Yeah.
public in to be able to go through. You don't have to be a Mormon to go into this temple during the open house,
Mm-hmm.
and you can look around, and I'm sure there are certain parts of it that you can't see, but there's Masonic imagery and
Mm-hmm.
the nuances of Masonic beliefs all throughout the temple.
Right.
If you research and you know where to look for the video that people have been able to take cameras into these places, even though they weren't supposed to, they took
Right.
cameras in, they were able to film some of the rituals and so forth. You notice that these rituals have some very questionable things involved with them. Okay.
Right.
Even their temple garments have some very questionable things involved with them. So you have to understand that even the Mormons, the Latter day Saints, you have practices and so forth that you could probably lump into being esoteric or occult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you're 100% right, and it's crazy once you. I mean, I typically don't dive down these rabbit holes, but after this past week, I got forced into them. But there's so many interesting things down to. I think it was Mark who was telling me about this because this place, they would have all these women come, and they would be undressing and all kinds of stuff and stuff like that. And he told me about how Freemasons and some other people would do this. And what would be going on is you have these women being provocative, sexual, whatever, and up above are all the men carrying out this magic and all these spells using their feminine sexuality as energy, and them not knowing, thinking that they're just there for a good time or whatever, not knowing what's going on. And they're sucking all this energy and using it and repurposing it. So it's kind of like what you talk about here with, the Mormons. There's all this stuff hidden in plain sight that people just don't realize are there with the masonry and stuff like that. And it's really kind of using these places.
One of the things that I've learned recently from an ex-JW, watching an interview with them, and I know people who are JW or were JW who have left the church. And for those that don't know, hey Daniel, for those that don't know, JW, Jehovah's Witness, okay. We think of them as just those nicely dressed, sweet old ladies who come knocking on our door and who really just are there to annoy us and leave us watchtowers. That's all we ever see of them.
Yeah.
I did not know. First of all, they don't celebrate anything. I did know that. They don't celebrate birthdays. They don't celebrate holidays. They don't even celebrate the one thing that Christians celebrate that they're supposed to celebrate, which is the sacrament or the Eucharist, if you're familiar with those terminologies. They don't even celebrate Easter. What they do is that day they assemble for what they call a memorial service. And they believe that the only people that are really allowed to take sacrament are the 144,000. I don't even want to get into their theology on the 144,000. It's all wrong. But what they do is they pass plates with the bread and wine, and each person passes it on. And the only time that you ever see anybody take, because nobody ever takes from it, and they're told not to unless they get a certain feeling.
Interesting.
I did not know that this was a practice of theirs. But I will tell you what this lady said that made perfect sense as to why they do that. They are actually rejecting Christ when they do that. Because they're rejecting taking the sacrament. And for those who believe in that theology, we believe that the sacrament is a very holy thing. It's something that Jesus instituted himself. He said, take and eat, take and drink, and explained that we do this in remembrance of him. So if you reject the sacrament and you claim to be, you believe in God, what you're really saying is that you're rejecting Christ. So even what should be the sacrament for them is actually a very dark practice. So there's all these undertones in some of these organizations that you have to be very careful about. and understand that just because, and these guys don't, let me say this. The average JW does not realize this. I mean, they're
Hmm.
taught, they're taught just like everybody else is taught, and they thoroughly believe because they trust the leadership, and they don't, if you've been raised in the church, how do you know anything
Right.
different? You don't know anything different. That's 100% the problem. So it's not that the General Assembly of JW are evil.
Right.
You know, they're just doing what they've been taught to do. I mean, they're just kind of going along with it because they don't have any other context. So before you go saying, "Oh, Daniel said that all JW are evil," then that's not what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, we just covered all kinds of bases tonight.
Yeah. It went from ghosts to I don't know what.
So you had a very deep and different experience this past week.
Hmm.
Um, and it kind of opened up some some new insight for you.
Right.
Going forward, how is that going to affect how you, like, the research you do, how you engage with the stuff that you've been working with? How is it going to change, or is it going to change how you go about working with things now?
I don't know that it's really going to change anything. Um, but it has been a realization that things that you just hear stories of, or things that you don't think still go on, that you might think are barbaric or stuck in the medieval ages, or stuck in Salem, even before that. These things still exist and still go on. There's still these locations where you have crazy rituals carried out daily, where you have blood sacrifices carried out daily. Um, and it's such an interesting concept to me. And like you were saying, not all Jehovah Witnesses are evil. That's the way that I went into that weekend, because I knew I was going to meet with witches. I knew I was going to meet with Satanists. I knew I was going to meet with necromancers. I knew I was going to meet with, all these different sects of people who worship all these different things and carry out these different rituals. Um, and I looked at it the same way. You know, not all these people are bad or evil. There are just as many bad and evil Christians as there are, a lot of other groups of people. So it was just really interesting for me to hear their take on things and to see, this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is how we do it. And just kind of the realization of that. I mean, I've never seen a monkey paw before. Now I have. Stuff like that is so absolutely intriguing to me. And I will not sit here and say that these are bad people, but it also helped me realize that, all this stuff does still exist without a doubt. Um, and it does have impact on whatever. Um, and there's something to be said about, you know, coming together and putting your energy into something to get a reaction.
Mhm.
There's definitely something to be said about that. And it also kind of made me realize, if you have all these different people with all these different beliefs, even down to Judaism and Christianity out there with Satanists and everything else. That spoke volumes to me that, number one, these people can coexist with all their different beliefs, which is amazing. But also seeing kind of the output, I guess you could say, of all these different practices really started making me realize that there really is no one answer, I don't believe. Therefore, if there is no one answer, who am I to say that the way that you do things is wrong? Now, the intent could be wrong, without a doubt, and the intention could be wrong, and I could 100% disagree with you there. But how am I to say that if you are doing things for a positive reaction or whatever it may be, whether you are, in some of these voodoo, hoodoo, and stuff like that, who are we to say that those practices are wrong when we have seen that they exist and things happen in accordance to those things? I don't know. It just left me with a lot of freaking questions. Because, like I said, I believe that there are just as many bad Christians as there are people who practice voodoo or hoodoo. I don't think that there's... Because at the end of the day, we're all people. All people are flawed. All people are, unpredictable and, selfish and all that. So, I don't know. It just left me with a lot more questions than anything, and a lot more respect for people who practice these different things. Yeah, exactly. We are all sinners. We are all sinners. It doesn't matter what religion you're in. Every single religion has a form of sin. And, that's what we all are. We're all flawed. Now, some groups might celebrate sinning. But, who's to say that one thing's a sin, like gluttony or something like that? You eat too much Taco Bell. Not that I've ever done that. And, that makes me a sinner. But maybe over here there's a church or a religion that embodies that. And who am I to say that you're wrong? I'm no one. But I'll to say, it seems like we're all working together for, air quotes, all working together towards the same type of goal. Because that's like the other thing that I kind of learned from there was that they talk about prayer being kind of this projection into this conscious vat, so to speak, that then can be pulled from. And it's kind of this, goes into this mass that connects with because one of my questions was, okay, so if you're telling me all this stuff exists out here, and you're telling me over here is Buddha and over here is Beelzebub, why are they not fighting right now? Like, what's going on? And that's when they kind of explain how it's a different, like, magnetic frequency. And you kind of create these fiber optics that connect with whatever you are vibrating towards. And that's how, when you pray, you're able to use these fiber optics to shoot these thoughts or whatever out on the same magnetic wavelength that you are on. So these things exist on different planes, but they're all there at the same time. And it's just, I don't know. My head hurts.
Like, they're having deep discussion on Taco Bell in the chat now.
I'm here for it. I'm 100% here for it. dude, talk about forget like anything, like capturing a full body apparition, anything. I just want a sponsorship from Taco Bell once in my lifetime. I've been saying that for years. That is my lifetime goal.
Well, I'm learning a lot about the sponsorship right now because I just signed up to be a sponsor or to have a sponsor. And I'll talk about that another day when I'm ready to open that up. But it is possible. You never know. Taco Bell may offer you a sponsorship if you ask them.
Not yet, I don't think, but we're working towards it. That's my life goal.
I mean, just keep it in the back of your mind. Just saying.
Oh, the dragon fruit freeze. That's some good stuff.
My goodness.
Dragon fruit freeze.
So as we start, because we're like actually about 38 minutes over the hour, but that's okay. I'm having a day, so it's my party.
We all are.
It's my party. I'll be overtime if I want to. Okay.
That's right.
Anyway.
That's right. You can't shut us down.
Right. So the Dead Chronicles. Let's talk about that for a moment and and what you're up to there. You don't know what to say about your own show?
I don't know. So right now the pilot season is coming out every 2 weeks, dropping a new episode. There are 2 episodes out now. It is I keep seeing Taco Bell in the chat, and I want Taco Bell so bad now. The pilot season is just that. It is a pilot season. We are filming the first season now, and it's going to be insane. Not just from an evidence standpoint and location standpoint, but production value, everything has gone up. It's skyrocketed. So it's gonna be really cool to get that out there. But essentially it's paranormal investigating with some history, some stories, and some back to the basics, investigating, no frills, and the whole goal, which you kind of start to see part of it with episode 2, is bringing people into the investigation. And I loved seeing people like comment afterwards about stuff because, like you saw in episode 2 is the introduction of the stationary cameras and going through them. There is stuff in these episodes that I do not point out. Mm-hmm. There's stuff that happened in those stationary cameras that I don't say anything about. I don't point out. Because I want people to become investigators and become part of the investigation. Not just for the viewer, but also for the people who may have some sort of handicap or anything like that to where they can't visit these locations. Because for some reason they didn't install too many elevators in these old abandoned places.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just kind of my take on what I would like to see on paranormal TV. And I'm just kind of winging it, man. We're just throwing some stuff out there and see what happens, right?
I gotta tell you, so far the 2 episodes I have seen,
terrible. They suck.
No,
worst thing you've ever seen. That's literally what your message says right here.
No, it's not what my message says. You're horrible. You're a horrible human being. I love you, but you're so mean to me. So, yes, we have a toxic friendship. No, we don't. It's great. I love him. So here's the thing, though. I will tell you this. There's like kind of a gothy undertone to the way these 2 episodes were presented to. So if you
I can see that.
Yeah. So if you are really into, the kind of macabre kind of, chillax, gothy thing, just check it out for that, if nothing else. But definitely check it out. I can tell you now, uh, if you watch the first episode first, uh, that one,
Mm-hmm.
eh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but episode 2 really starts building into what the show is more about, and how is kind of the rhythm and the cadence involved in what Austin is doing. It gives it more, I think it's more true um, to the experience of the Chronicles, the Dead Chronicles, honestly, to really put it into perspective. I think that one's a little more true.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely get to see an evolution from episode to episode to episode. And then going into what will be the first season, it's going to be like, it's like if you see a moth, or not a moth, a caterpillar, then it kind of, you're like, oh, that's cool. Then it goes into this cocoon. You're like, oh, what's going on in there? Then it becomes a butterfly. That's kind of we're now in the cocoon stage. First episode, you saw the little caterpillar. You're like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Then you saw the cocoon, and now there's just something moving in there. You're gonna see the butterfly next. That's the only way I can think to explain it. But
I
it's
can see
that
that.
kind of that evolutionary cycle. Like you said, from the first episode, second episode, first episode wasn't even supposed to exist. They literally threw us that location for free, and it sucked.
Mm.
It was like 900 degrees. I got covered with chiggers. That sucked. Um, it was hot. It was sweaty. We went back to the hotel room, and there was a homeless man sleeping under stairs. I don't know, man. It was just a bad time all around. So,
Right. There was a couple of other things that happened that I'm not going to go into with you guys, that I know because we've talked about it,
yeah,
that kind of put a damper on the experience.
yeah,
So if you do watch the first episode, just be aware of the fact that it seemed like they weren't really into it, because there were some things that kind of threw it all off. Okay.
yeah. Very
And,
much so.
again, this was not one of their planned episodes. It was an episode that just happened to get there. So the first episode I took with a grain of salt.
Right.
The second episode, I was starting to go, okay, bro, got something going on here now. The next episode, you might see my little mug in there for a minute.
Is that the next one? I was just thinking, what is the next one? That is the next one, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I didn't think about it until you said something about that particular.
Oh, that the next episode is going to give me some hate. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. The first 5 to 10 minutes of that episode is going to give me some hate. You're not in it, but it's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Now I'm curious as to what's going to be in it. Don't spoil it. Yeah, so that's going on there, and then I'm going to be joining you guys for at least one location.
Yeah.
I'm really wanting to make it to the other one that you talked about as well, there in Indiana.
Oh yeah, in September. Yeah.
Yeah, that in September. Definitely the two there in Kentucky, I'll definitely be at. Those are absolutely doable.
Oh yeah, you'll love those. Those are two places that you walk in and you're like, I'm allowed to be in here right now. Holy crap. I mean, especially the jail. You've got literally, the jail was used as a Confederate prison at one point, and you literally have graffiti from Confederate soldiers on the walls.
Oh wow.
And it's like, I'm allowed to be in here. Like, I get to experience this. It's wild. It's wild.
Well, and to be honest with you, this will be the first time I've ever been able to do a non-guided um,
Okay.
uh, investigation in a place like this. Like I've done investigation in private homes before and in cemeteries and other things, but this will be the first one of its kind
Nice.
that I'm actually going to. So not only am I going to be doing it with a great group of people, but there's a lot of first involved with this location. So
Yeah, we're gonna hold hands for the first time. There's gonna be a lot of firsts.
aw. Look, we jokingly, I'm just going to tell them. So the episode that we did together, where I brought Austin on to talk about the Dead Chronicles for the first time. Um, I named that episode after a song.
Oh yeah,
because I felt like it went along with what I was feeling the episode and the vibe of everything was going to kind of go into that direction. So some things I didn't know about the song and the title. First of all, it happens to be not only one of my favorite songs, but one of Austin's favorite songs too. There was footage from one of the episodes of the Dead Chronicles that went very well with the song and that title. So there were just several things about it that kind of made it almost an ongoing, like, matter of fact and almost an ongoing inside joke in a way. So I jokingly started calling it mine and Austin's song. But
right.
so Roses for the Dead is now our song.
It's true.
You gotta know. You just gotta know. It's anybody that's like eats Taco Bell, which I'm a big taco fan too. I love Taco Bell. There's that just weird connection there, Anyway, it is. It's something about it. It's the food.
Yep. Something about those cheesy double beefs that just have us all linked together.
God, now you're gonna make me want to go Taco Bell, and it's just down the street. Before we close out tonight, do you have any? What's some final words that you have for us to leave with us tonight? Final thoughts. Not Taco Bell related.
So I'm trying to get my head out of that space right now, really hard. But that Crunchwrap is calling my name. Don't doubt that certain things exist, because I've been through this multiple times where I have thought that for sure things didn't exist. And even going back into this past weekend, I accept that certain things exist, but I did not believe. And now I'm still not sure where I'm at, but I didn't necessarily believe in the effects of some of these practices and things like that. I'm still not 100% sure where I'm at on that. I know that people can manifest things, but I don't know if they're manifesting, if it's like Philip experiment type of things going on, or if it's whatever. But with that being said, realize that there's a lot more weird stuff out there than we even realize. And that things that we thought no longer exist or no longer go on, they still do, which is crazy. And sometimes to a large extent, to where you've got people flying from overseas to come here to carry out rituals with 30, 40, 50 other people. in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
That's freaking nuts.
There's something about that particular area that makes them move in that direction to want to come here for that particular area.
Yeah, absolutely. But
It's the only area exactly like it in the entire planet.
right. See, that's all I got. Just there's weird stuff out there, y'all. In case you didn't know, some weird stuff.
Right. Like people who choose McDonald's over Taco Bell.
Okay, no, those people should not exist.
But they do.
But they shouldn't. Like, that's where we need to kind of draw. You should, okay, I'm all for rights and everything, but you should not be able to vote. You shouldn't be able to drive a car. You shouldn't be able to reproduce. Like, that's all I'm saying. We don't need those kind of people making decisions for our country. And we don't need you giving us offspring to lead the country. Like, we just got to cut the cord at some point.
Wow. Wow.
I'm not wrong. That's all I'm saying. If you choose McDonald's over Taco Bell,
I'm literally not arguing with you.
McDonald's has good fries. I'll give them that. They've got that. That's it. Their hamburgers suck. Their chicken is not even real chicken. I don't know what it is. They got Coke products. Like, really? Who wants Coke products? You want a Baja Blast? And did you know? I have a fun fact to leave you with.
Okay.
Did you know that the only reason that in restaurants, fast food places, et cetera, the only reason that we have refillable cups, the reason you're allowed to get refills, is because of Taco Bell. They started the movement.
Wow.
There you go. So that's why we should, I don't know. Now I'm kind of debating on creating my own Taco Bell cult.
Oh. I feel like that'll be a new episode coming up soon.
Yeah.
He's actually deeply thinking about this, guys. That's the scary part.
This is now a thought. We could make offerings to the Chihuahua.
At least
so let me know if you're interested in joining a not cult. We'll meet behind the Taco Bell on 3rd Street. Bring your own robes.
Jeez.
And we'll have a good time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Awesome. Hang in the back for a minute. I'm not going to keep you long tonight because I know how that Taco Bell craving goes. But I'm going to close this out. And I'll be back with you in a moment.
Sounds good. I'll be here.
Awesome. Okay, well, not the show I had planned for tonight and not the show I had looked forward to for a month, but it was a good show. It was a great show. And I had fun, and that's what counts. And you guys stayed with me, most of you. A couple of things I want to point out real quickly. If you notice, I have my settings different tonight. If you notice up here in the corner, the Witch Hat logo is no more. It's not that I'm doing away with it altogether yet, but this is kind of a part of the slow process of the rebranding. Remember, I talked about that a while back. One of the other things that's going to happen, and you saw the background tonight, right? around us. Hold on a second. Can I change this? There we go. That there is actually part of the rebranding too. So I also added a new, and don't get too worried about the idea of having to learn a new name. I'm always going to be Magical Journey. There's going to be a little bit of change to the branding though, coming in. Like, my goal was for 2026. It may come sooner than that, because one of the parts of that is going to be the spelling of magic. Because one of the things I'm finding is that people are having a hard time, in some cases, like finding me in research and like trying to search for my brand, because some things kick it out as being a misspelling because the K in there, which is another reason why I'm going through the website address will eventually change as well. So a lot of things are coming up with the rebranding, but I'm going to be moving this out slowly so people don't think that I just like disappeared and there's another show all of a sudden that's doing. No, it's a slow process. It's a process that will make sense as it comes along. And what I'm doing now is just trying to get you guys used to it. So just a heads up, pay attention to the subtle changes and the not so subtle changes. If you go to the channel, there is a new video up in the introductory video, or the promo video. That is part of the new change. It's actually, there's this scene is actually featured in there, and there's a lot of cool stuff that's working with that. I'm using a lot more AI now. So expect a little more creativity as we go along. Anyway, so again, check out the website. It's still the same address right now. It's still the same website, except for the fact that I've added the audio podcast. And every night or every week after I do this whatever this is, I'm going to go back. I'm going to add the audio podcast onto my RSS, so it will be up and ready as soon as it processes. So you'll get that, and you'll have the blog post on the website tonight, no later than tomorrow morning, depending on how soon it takes it to update. But I'll be working on it right after this. So there's your heads up for that. Do not forget, if you go to the website, pick up some magical merch. So you will be one of the cool kids sporting some really cool gear. And I'll be keeping the magical merch logo. We'll still be selling this because some of this logo is going to be around for a while. Still just not in the same capacity and not in the same way. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you again. And next week, hopefully, we'll actually be on course with what we were planning to do. And may your journey always be magical.